Hi everybody, Giselle Grenier here from artplace.ca. Well, it's a really rainy day outside, so it's perfect to be in the studio to create another book of backgrounds page. I'm going to be working on the back of this one here, and there's some paper that got stuck to the back of this. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to leave it. It'll just add more texture. And let me just trim this. So in this experiment, I'm going to see what it's going to be like to stencil with just metallic luster. It's a metallic wax finish, and I just want to try to see what happens when you stencil. I've got everything laid out because it has to go on in very specific order. So I'm going to go through the supplies now so I don't get distracted and mess up, and I'm probably going to. For the brushes, I've got my number 8 Bristle Bright. This is a Royal Soft Grip. And I got my Royal Aquilons 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch glaze, and the number 3 round. And I'm going to be using DecoArt products. This is their media line, white gesso, matte medium. So we're going to gesso the page first. Then we're going to collage some paper. This is their new line of decoupage papers, and I'm going to be using Safari Life, and this is the distressed zebra print. I'm going to use a matte medium for that. And then we're going to create a barrier layer. So once we decoupage that's going to dry. Then we're going to create a barrier layer, which is going to be an invisible transparent layer, which is going to be between the paper and the next layer, which is going to be the metallic luster orange flickr. I'm going to dilute it with water to create a wash over part of the paper. And if I were to create that wash on the decoupage paper without sealing it first, then when we come down to the rubbing and stuff like that, the paper might tear. So that's orange flickr for the wash. And then I'm going to stencil. This is the new line of stencils from DecoArt. When they come out with new products, I get so excited because a lot of the new stuff that they're coming out with now is more edgy. It's more modern, more industrial, which I absolutely love. And this is the Urban Ink line, and it's called Spirited. And you get 2 stencils in the package, which is yay. These are tattoo inspired, and what I'm going to be doing is using this one. You can do anything if you believe. So this book of backgrounds page is going to be prompt driven. So I'm going to create the prompt on the page to inspire the phase 2, which is creating the artwork. And I may use this flourish here as kind of like a divider. And I've got my windows open, and I have a funny feeling the video is a little dark. I'm not sure. But I'm going to stencil that with metallic luster Brilliant Turquoise. And I picked this because these are opposite on the color wheel, so they're really going to pop. Then I'm going to let that dry. Save that 24 hours to let it dry because it's an experiment. I don't know just stenciling with this, what's going to happen. If it's going to actually harden, I don't know. So I'm going to wait 24 hours. Then I'm going to come back and accent part of the stencil part with the black shimmer. If it works and the actual stenciled wax metallic, it hardens, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to varnish it. But I have to see first if that's going to work. Well, we know what we're going to do first. So, although I'm working on the back of this page, if you're just joining me for the first time, you can go to the Book of Backgrounds, there's video number 1, or go to the website at artplace.ca. I've got a free roadmap in there, which takes you through the entire process from beginning to end with one project, just so you can see if it's something you'd like to participate in. Number 8 Bristle Bright, dry, and I'm going to gesso this. So if this is your first time and you want to just create this on a page, this is 140 pound mixed media paper. This is Strathmore, and it's the Wind Power paper. You can use any mixed media paper. It doesn't matter. You can use watercolor paper. You can use a canvas. It doesn't matter. I'm encouraging people to try experiments in an art journal because you're more likely to experiment in an art journal, whether you make it yourself or buy one commercially made. You're more likely to experiment in that than on an expensive canvas. Because then what do you do with the canvas? Yeah, you can upcycle it. But I find that even knowing I can upcycle, I don't. I feel more free doing it in the journal. Now, I didn't cover everything. There's a spot here that's a little bit raw, so I didn't cover everything because I want to see what it's going to be like when the diluted wax metallic goes on the paper. I'm going to dry this with the heat gun. So for the papers, I'm going to use the safari paper. They package it so nicely. I hate to ruin the way that they lay everything out. Yeah, this is their new line of papers. It's I'm experimenting with it now using the matte medium. I was just using the decoupage medium, the matte finish, but I'm experimenting with the actual media. I'm looking now to, I was thinking about just cutting this out with a die cut, and I'm thinking of just bringing some strips in, but I want to make sure I get some of this distressed part here. I didn't quite go over it. I don't like a hard line like that, so I'm going to bring a strip like so. One corner to one corner. That's what I'll do. And I am super tempted to vintage the edges with some distress ink, but it's going to take away from the experiment. So I'm going to leave it like that. All right, so let's do some collage. Let me get rid of this. As I'm going through the materials, I'm putting them out of the way so I don't get distracted. I'm finding with experiments, I get really, really distracted. Because I think, oh, what if this works? Oh, what if this works? Oh, what if this works? So, all right. So that's, oops, I got some red, and that's from another video. That's okay. So I'm going to put on the matte medium. I'm not going to cover everything. I want to leave some areas unmediumed, unpainted, raw, to see what it looks like when I put on the wash of metallic luster, because they're water soluble when they're wet, or sorry, they're water soluble, period. Okay, so then put that there. I'm going to go back. It's super, super warm right now. We have a rainstorm taking place. We're under a risk of thunderstorms because there's more heat and humidity coming in. We all know how much I like that. Well, the good thing is I'm using, got some studio lights, new studio lights in now. They're all LEDs, so it helps with the heat. They're not as hot. There we go. So if I were to actually just leave this the way it is to dry, that'd be fine. But I'm going to run the risk of damaging the paper when I put the wash on because the paper's porous. And this one here. Use the back side of the brush to pick that up. I'm going to trim the edges on this one. So that's pretty good. Oops, I don't like that. I don't like hard edges. I don't know if it's a quirk or I like rough looking stuff, distressed. I love the distressed papers here. All right, I'm going to take this and I'm going to wipe the table. And then I'm going to get the heat gun and I'm going to dry this, and then once that's dry, we're going to put a barrier layer on. Yeah, I could put the barrier layer on right now, but I want it dry and then apply another layer. All right, before the barrier layer goes on there, I'm going to take a damp, this is my 3/4 inch wash, just a damp brush, barely damp, and I just want to see what happens. I'm not putting any of this on the paper. Just applying some of that. Then I'm going to take a baby wipe. Let's see. Oh, it actually is a really pretty wash over the baby over the matte medium areas. But this is where the raw paper is, and look how it just goes right into the paper. That is really nice. Now this is a background, don't forget. You can see here where I took the brush and I went horizontal. You can see there's raw paper here and raw paper here, and there's matte medium here. Again, this is just a background, so don't get overly worked up if it doesn't look anything like what you want. You cannot heat set this wax metallic because it's wax, so we have to let it dry naturally. It doesn't take long. It's actually already dry. Then I'm going to take a soft cloth and I'm going to buff it. There isn't much to buff, but when you buff it like this, you're increasing the shine and you're increasing the permanence. We're going to still be putting a barrier layer on top though. Back with the matte medium. I'm using a larger brush for this now. Nice heavy layer, and I'm not going to overwork the area. Now for this, I can overwork it and it's going to be fine. But typically when you're working with the matte medium, with the wax metallics, you don't want to overwork the area, because I have some that I have dried out because I didn't cap it. I didn't tighten the cap, so they dried out. I can use it as like watercolors. There we go. Takes care of that. So I'm going to let that dry, and yeah, it doesn't say but the drying time. I'm thinking typically for barrier layer, I let this dry for a couple of hours. If you're in a hurry to get working, you can heat this up to dry. I'm not going to because I've got the wax underneath. So I'm going to put this aside to dry, and then when we come back, we'll apply a wash of the orange flickr over the zebra print, and that won't take long to dry because there's going to be water in it. We're going to come back with the stencil, and then when the stencil goes on, we're going to let that sit for 24 hours. So now we're ready to put on our wash of orange flickr. This will be on the paper. Let me just trim that. Forgot to do that before going on camera. I could also wrap the paper around so it goes on this front part too. And these strips, I used to keep them all. Now I just put them in my blue box because I was getting to be a bit too much. Oh, shoot. Okay. I have to remember, this is going to be a conscious thing, that when I'm doing some heavy duty mixing with the metal palette knife, not to do it on the unstick. Because I gouged it. What I'm doing now is I'm softening it up. Okay. Spray a little bit of water. Mix that up. And then it turns into a metallic paint. Yes, I could have used metallic paint, but I don't have this color in the metallics. All right. I'm going to use my 1-inch glaze. I've got the barrier layer down so I can wipe back some of this metallic. You didn't need a lot. That's actually what I'm looking for. That's too much. There we go. Let me just cap that. BB wipe. And let's just pull a little bit of that out. That baby wipe is way too wet. Way too wet. I don't want to use paper towel to bring out some of the metallics. It'll be too much because that paper towel is very textured. There we go, just like that. And I'm having to tilt it because the way the light's hitting it, I don't see what you see. Okay, so put that aside. And I'm just going to dry this for a second. And I did use the heat gun and it was okay. It didn't go all melty on me. Because I put a thin layer of a wash on this, I can, if I want, come back and add another layer of matte medium as a barrier. I'm not going to. But what I am going to do is take a soft cloth and I'm going to just rub to make sure. There's a little bit coming off, so I'm just burnishing it now. All I did with the heat gun was just evaporate the water. There we go. See, if I had not put that barrier layer on, all I would be doing is rubbing the metallic on the actual paper, and it may have torn the paper. There we go. Okay, so let's stencil. So I'm looking at putting that right there in the bottom, which will leave me the room at the top to create my art. I could put that there and then, or put this here, then put the text on top, but that's going to only leave me a little bit. So I'm just going to leave, I'll just do this here. And I'm looking to see through the stencil so I can make sure it's lined up. And again, this is only a background, so I'm not going to worry about it. Because if it doesn't turn out, you can always upcycle it to something else. I'm going to grab a little piece of low tack tape. Because it's such a large area to stencil. Brilliant turquoise. Brilliant turquoise. I'm going to be using, yeah, that's pretty good. I want to soften up the wax. I would love it if DecoArt would create this type of product with paint colors. Not metallic, but just plain. Yeah, I can use modeling paste and then just tint it with the paint. But you have to use, I think it's only 20% paint, so the paint isn't as vibrant. You can do anything if you believe. I could also just stencil believe in a different color. Being very careful not to damage the stencil because there's little words in there. I'm going to need more of this. I can always put it back in if I don't use it all. I love these Urban Ink stencils. They also have another one which is alphabet, is typography. And then there's a stencil, it's for layering stencils, and it has a background, which is really neat. I'm making sure that my palette knife does not get caught in the stencil. I have a habit of doing that when I'm working too fast. not only could I run the risk of getting my palette knife inside and damaging the stencil, is I'll end up getting the wax metallic underneath, and then the letters will not be crisp. Okay, I'm just scraping the top now because I want to make sure that I have a thin layer, not something that's super duper thick. And scraping in different directions will also have the finish, the stenciled finish, a little bit different. The little letters may not be so visible, but the big letters, you'll see the modeling paste have some lines going this way and some go this way. Okay. Before I do anything, let me put that back in there. Clean off my palette knife. Move that out of the way. And very, very carefully lift the stencil up. Do not slide it. There we go. Isn't that gorgeous? Wow. Wowzers. I am speechless. I don't know what to say. Yeah, I want to do that too. Should have did that first then. Okay, so let's see how we're going to wing this. I don't want to scrape that on there. That's going to get damaged. So I'm going to fold this paper over. That goes for the blue box. Ooh, better pick that up. That's my paintbrush. Otherwise, you know who. You know who is going to be a little too interested. So I'm going to gently clean off that stencil, and I have to clean it before I do this part here. Just showing you how I clean. Baby wipe, getting the excess off. Ideally what I would do is just go into another journal if I wasn't on camera, and then just re-stencil, because that transfers over. And when I know chaos isn't around, I can get, I can leave a container of water on the floor or on the table on the side. I rent a room, and I'll just put my stencil in there so it doesn't dry out. These wax metallics I can clean really easily because they are water soluble until they're buffed and sealed and all that stuff. I just bent my stencil. So I just want to get rid of all the excess though. The N. I bent the N. Okay. If you were smart, you would just let this dry, then stencil the top. I am not smart. I want to see what's going to happen. I want to see what's going to happen. Right at the very top. Is that straight? I'm using the letters as a guide. Oh shoot, the masking tape was on that other piece of paper. If you were smart, you would let the other piece dry. Okay, so at least that, see? It didn't work. Oh, I know what will work. Oh, if I just did practice what I preach, my gosh. There we go. That'll protect that part. I'm going to use a little palette knife. I need another pair of hands. Little baby plastic palette knife. Knife comes with the texture tools. And I contort my body. Oh, let's see if I can slide this over. I have to be careful because the stencil is lifting up, so I have to make sure it's flat before applying any more wax metallic. This blue pops with the background. Okay, so who's taking bets that this worked? Because I was too lazy to wait for it to dry. Not too lazy, too impatient. Da 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 da. Haha! Ooh boy, I got close. I got really close on that one. It's a good thing the binding's on this side. Here we go. Holy smokes, that is gorgeous. I don't think I'm going to come back with the black. I don't think I was going to go over the part with the black. I don't know if I want to now. And if I do with coming with the black, it'll only be on this and leave the word believe in the turquoise. I'm not sure. If I had to finish it right now, I would leave it the way it is, but I do have a bit of time left once this is dry to see if it's something I want to further embellish with the black. So we'll see, but that is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. All right, I'm gonna let this dry for a few hours and then we'll see what I decide. I absolutely love this. Even Joe said, oh, he loves the turquoise. But I think I'm gonna knock down, I want this to be the emphasis, so I'm gonna tone everything down just a little bit. And it's really easy, just taking a little bit of water, and I can take a little bit of the wax metallic. Now I just should have taken this out with a palette knife and then blend it on here. You really shouldn't be dipping a wet brush with tap water into your products because tap water has chlorine and all that stuff in it, depending on where you live. Distilled water is fine, but so just make it really, really watery. And I'm just applying a very, very light, even that's just a little bit too strong, just a very light wash of this. The metallic luster, this is black shimmer, very, very versatile what you can do with it. And you would typically buff this to really make it shine. I'm not going to. And I don't want this to be too shiny. And it is very flexible. There's no cracking. So I'm just going to touch this. Oops. Tiny little pieces. Oh, I got lucky with that there. Now I got some of the blue. It's kind of smudged a bit onto the zebra part, so I can spread that around. It will be a little bit shiny up there. We'll see what happens. So just going over all of this, and then this will be dry in about 5 minutes, and then I can go on to doing something else with it. So I hope that you enjoyed this project and was inspired to create something, create a page that's inspired, that will inspire a prompt that's prompt driven, which will help with the phase 2 part of the project, which is creating the actual artwork on the background. And if you're not into art journaling, no big deal, because you can still use the book of backgrounds as experiments for art for anything you want. Basically, the book of backgrounds, it saves you from having to waste money on canvases for experimenting. There we go. So see, I kind of toned it down a little bit, and this really stands out. And I can go on and just apply another layer. Doesn't take long to dry at all. It's almost instant because it's watered down. Now I'm going a little fast for this. I'm getting some on the paper. Doesn't matter. This is a background. And I just thought what I could do is take the, I'm not going to, I'm going to save that for the second part. I could take some, the misters, Decor Art Media misters, diluted, and just put it on the paper and kind of tilt the paper to stain the paper. And it won't go on any of this because this is raised. So that's a really cool effect as well. There we go, close that. And I'm going to take a little Q-tip. And I can also just, because this is water soluble, it will come up. And I'm deciding I'm not liking this here. The idea that I put the black metallic in there. See, it comes up easy peasy. And I just realized this is water soluble. I could, to take up the blue is really easy as well. Just keep working with a clean Q-tip. All right, so that's it. Once it's dry, it's ready to go. And I hope that you will give this a try. And I would love to see a picture. So please feel free to email it to me, or even better is to share it in our private Facebook group. It's a free group made up of artists of all levels. And just we'd love to see other people's work as well, just and get feedback and stuff. And sometimes you can bounce ideas off each other, which is the best part of the group. Sorry about that interruption. Mia came in the room and decided she wanted to drop her ball right at my feet. So where was I? I was basically doing a close off. Facebook group, yeah. Information, the links to my private Facebook group and my email, if you prefer to email me a picture, are on my website at artplace.ca. So I'm going to clean up, get ready for my next project. And until I see you in the next video, stay inspired.